Direct News TV. August 30, 2023. Russia-Ukraine updates, Prigozhin plane may be downed on purpose, Kremlin. Cruise missile downed over Russia-annexed Crimea, chief official. The chief official in Crimea, annexed by Russia in 2014, has said that anti-aircraft units downed a cruise missile fired at the peninsula. Anti-aircraft forces in eastern Crimea have downed a cruise missile, Sergei Aksionov said on Telegram on Wednesday, and asked residents to remain calm. 2 Ukrainian drones downed over Bryansk region in southern Russia, Governor. Anti-aircraft units downed 2 Ukrainian drones over Bryansk region in southern Russia, with no casualties or damage reported, the region's governor has said. The Russian Defense Ministry's anti-aircraft forces have thwarted an attack by Ukrainian terrorists, the governor, Alexander Bogomaz, wrote on Telegram on Wednesday. 2 drones have been downed over Bryansk district. There are no casualties or damage. Former member of Lukashenko's forces to face trial over forced disappearances. A former member of Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko's special security forces is to face trial in Switzerland next month for the forced disappearances of political opponents in the late 1990s. Activists called it a watershed moment in international justice that could trigger prosecutions abroad of other Belarus officials, including Lukashenko, whose regime has come under renewed criticism over a crackdown against opposition leaders that began in August 2020 and support for Russia's military invasion of Ukraine last year. The case against Yuri Horowski is due on September 19 to 20 in the northern Swiss Regional Court of St. Gallen and focuses on the enforced disappearances of 3 people in 1999. Horowski lives in Switzerland, where he applied for asylum in 2018. He has made high-profile confessions about his involvement in the killings of Lukashenko's political opponents in 1999. EU chief urges member countries to order more ammunition for Ukraine. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell has urged member countries to order more ammunition for Ukraine, as figures showed the bloc is a long way from a March target of giving Kyiv 1 million artillery shells within 12 months. Borrell said on Wednesday that overarching agreements, known as framework contracts, had been signed with arms firms to allow EU member countries to place joint orders for 155mm rounds, urgently needed by Ukraine as it fights Russia's invasion. Now it's up to the member states to pass concrete orders inside these framework agreements with the industry, Borrell told reporters after a meeting of EU defense ministers in the Spanish city of Toledo. In a landmark step, EU countries agreed in March on a plan worth some €2 billion, $2.18 billion, to provide 1 million artillery shells or missiles to Ukraine within 12 months. The EU has not even reached a quarter of its target, more than 5 months after the initiative was launched. Poland MPs give green light for Russian influence panel to begin work. Poland's parliament has given a green light for a Russian influence panel to begin work, despite EU and US criticism that it could be used against opposition politicians. On Wednesday, the Conservative majority elected 9 members to the panel in a vote boycotted by all opposition parties, which refused to put forward candidates for the posts, calling it illegal and anti-constitutional. No date was given for when the panel would become operational. Poland, a neighbor and staunch ally of Ukraine, which is battling Russia's invasion, in late May set up a committee with the stated goal of investigating citizens who may have succumbed to Russian influence. Under the law, those found guilty could find themselves banned for 10 years from public positions relating to government finances and classified information. Critics argued the measure, introduced just months before parliamentary elections, would be used to target opposition leader Donald Tusk. Following the law's adoption earlier this year, the European Union launched legal action against Poland, while the United States expressed concern that the law could be used to block the candidacy of opposition politicians without due process. Faced with the criticism, Polish President Andrzej Duda proposed amendments to do away with the penalties, and in early August signed the amended bill into law. Badminton allows Russian and Belarusian athletes to return February. Russian and Belarusian athletes will be allowed to return to international badminton competitions from next February, the sport's governing body has announced. The Badminton World Federation, BWF, said players from the two countries, who have been banned due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, would be able to compete as neutral athletes. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, is yet to decide whether or not Russians and Belarusians will be able to compete at next year's Paris Games. But earlier this year, the IOC did recommend that they could compete in Olympic qualifying events under a neutral flag. We feel the decision to lift the suspension on Russian and Belarusian athletes who meet the criteria to participate as individual neutral athletes is a positive step forward as part of our endeavor to promote peace and solidarity, said BWF President Poul-Erik Høyer-Larsen. The BWF said the first steps towards reintegrating Russians and Belarusians would start this September. Tech giants failed to tackle Russian disinformation on Ukraine war, EU study. Tech titans, including TikTok and Twitter, renamed X, failed to effectively tackle Russian disinformation online during the first year of the war in Ukraine, a study for the EU has found. The independent study for the EU published on Wednesday comes after tougher rules under the Digital Services Act, DSA, kicked in this month for the world's biggest online platforms. The report focused on risks from pro-Kremlin disinformation on 6 platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, rebranded X, YouTube, TikTok and Telegram, and whether the company's actions complied with elements of the DSA. Except Telegram, all must currently comply with the DSA's stricter rules that demand a more aggressive approach to policing content, including disinformation and hate speech. The evidence suggests that online platforms failed to implement these measures at a systemic level, the study wrote. Most major platforms signed the code last year, but Twitter withdrew in June. The authors warned that Russian online disinformation has increased in 2023, especially after SpaceX and Tesla billionaire Elon Musk took over Twitter late last year. The reach and influence of Kremlin-backed accounts has grown further in the first half of 2023, driven in particular by the dismantling of Twitter's safety standards. Musk unleashed a wave of sackings when he took over, firing many moderators who vetted Twitter content for disinformation and harmful messages. Russian man faces years in prison for criticizing war on Ukraine. A Russian man prosecuted for giving a spontaneous street comment criticizing the Kremlin's Ukraine war to foreign media says he stands by his words, despite facing up to 10 years in prison. "I do not regret anything. Life is like a swing, there are highs and lows," 37-year-old Yuri Kokovets told reporters after a hearing for his trial on Wednesday. In July 2022, Kokovets was approached by Radio Free Europe/Radio Liberty, RFE/RL, outside a central Moscow metro station and asked to give his views on the conflict. He blamed Moscow and criticized President Vladimir Putin. "Everyone has the right to express themselves," the 37-year-old said after his hearing was adjourned. "Fate brought me into contact with reporters from the free press outside the metro, and I told them everything I thought," he said. "I stand by my opinion. Nothing has changed. But at the moment, it is not visible in the distance. But I hope there will be one." Russia has waged an unprecedented crackdown on dissent since the military campaign in Ukraine began in February 2022. Kyiv urges French supermarket Auchan to leave Russian market. Ukraine has said that fragments of a Russian missile fell on a mall housing French supermarket Auchan in Kyiv, amid repeated calls for the company to leave the Russian market. Many prominent Western brands left Russia in the wake of Moscow's invasion, but Auchan stayed, spurring calls from Kyiv for a boycott. Fragments of destroyed Russian missile hit a mall in Kyiv, where supermarket Auchan is located, Ukraine's defense ministry wrote in an English-language social media post. It criticized Auchan for remaining in Russia throughout the invasion, saying it finances war and suffers from Russian attacks. Cynicism, masochism, or stupidity. "Exit Russia, this money is too bloody," the ministry said. Auchan is owned by the Mullies family. The company has said it wants to stay in the Russian market to supply the country and keep local staff employed. Russia in talks with Korea to get munitions for Ukraine war, White House. Russia is in secret, active talks with North Korea to acquire a range of munitions and supplies for Moscow's fight in Ukraine, the White House has said. Arms negotiations between Russia and the DPRK, North Korea, are actively advancing, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said on Wednesday, adding that a key focus of the talks was artillery ammunition for Moscow's forces. Kirby noted that despite its denials, North Korea supplied infantry rockets and missiles to Russia last year for use by the privately controlled Wagner military group. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.